what I thought that I would do, just first off, is just tell you a little bit about who it is that we are and what it is that we do in the context of sort of our ratings and our process. And I guess from just a Forbes travel guide point of view is, who's ever heard of a 5-star hotel? So we are the organization that awards those. We've actually been around since 1958, so we are the world's second oldest rating company. But just like, I guess, Forbes Travel Guide used to be a company called Mobile Travel Guide. So just like Michelin created a guide to get people on the road to use their tires, Mobile created a guide to get people on the road to use the gas, created guidebooks and all that fun stuff, and began rating hotels. So since 1958 till now, we have, as a company, grown pretty aggressively and are now in over 50 countries. We rate hotels and restaurants and spas. So just as a sort of a fun fact, just to start talking about that 5-star mentality, is that does anyone know how many 5-star hotels there are on the planet? All right, who knows the answer?
Don't pick on the cheaters.
All right. 175. All right, so that's total on the planet. So just sort of a good thought is that how many hotels are there? There are lots of hotels, right? I don't actually even know the answer, but I know that there are about 55,000 hotels just in the United States. So once you start talking about that number, it's obviously an incredibly exclusive club. From a restaurant perspective, what do we think? How many 5-star restaurants are there? That number drops pretty precipitously to 62, and we've got 56 5-star spots. So once again, a very, very select group. So from just how it is that we do it and what we do, obviously this is a good number of hotel brands that we work with and that are rated by us, from the Dorchester Collection to Four Seasons to the Ritz-Carlton. So I think historically represent the best of the absolute best in the hospitality industry. So just as a quick note that I always like to mention, that when we go and we inspect a hotel or a restaurant or a spa, we actually don't try and trick anybody. We don't complain. We're not the inspectors from Ocean's 12 or Ocean's 13 or whatever movie that was actually filmed right here, right? That we're not going to walk around with a white glove and a black light and inspect the room or show up at the front desk with our pet ostrich and see how anyone handles it or whatever it may be. So our goal is actually just to be a pretty average guest and go through the experience. So if we're having a great arrival or a great in-room dining experience, excellent, we love it, we will do nothing to ruin it. That said, if we're not having a very good experience, we will do nothing to help you. That it's not a guest's job, it's not a resident's job to start fixing your mistakes. The guest who's the one that's paying for it, so we owe it to them to do it right the first time. Right? That 5-star rating actually comes from 75% is the service in which it's provided. Only 25% is the actual facility. So we really believe that anyone can build a really beautiful hotel, but to fill it with people who actually care about a guest is far more difficult, and that's why there are only 175 of them. First, we start talking about the consistency in service. And what we mean by consistency is something that's very different than what most people think of consistency, because we only do something once in order to see if it's consistent. What we mean by consistent is everything the same from day to day to day to day, because in reality it won't be, right? What we mean is that is everything consistent within itself. You go into guest room, beautiful guest room, that the words that come out of someone's mouth need to be just as beautiful. Because you can't be in a beautiful place but be spoken to like you're not in one. The moment that happens, that's the inconsistency. Your environment is what creates its consistency. So when we start talking about words that you say, the tone of your voice, that no one really ever looks at you and says, "You have such a beautiful frown. You look great when you cry. You should do it all day long." Right? Like, what do people tell you? You've got a beautiful smile, so we want to see that too. And then all of a sudden, when you start to put all of those little things together, it starts to tell a little story, right? The quality of the service. And this is where the nitty-gritty starts to come into play, is that you have 500 standards. The way they all work is that they are all 100% a yes or a no. It's 100% achieved or it wasn't. That's it. Our first segment of that is courtesy and manners. So Who's the first person to speak in any interaction? Should always be us. So I know this is going to sound like kind of a silly thing, but how do you greet somebody? What do you say? When you meet a resident for the first time, when you're taking them on a tour, or whatever, or that first initial reaction is that I'd like you to think that you're checking into a hotel and I'm the doorman. And I walk up to your vehicle and you're super excited about staying there. And I open up the door and I say, "Good afternoon, how may I assist you?" Or I open up the door and say, "Good afternoon, welcome to the Four Seasons." What would you rather want to hear as a guest? Right? Why? It's confidence, it's branding, and I think what a great property does is that it already from the very first moment they meet you, it's already trying to create a sense of place. That it just starts to feel like you're actually being welcomed to the property, not just that you're anywhere. How do you answer the phone? Maybe providing a time of day, naming the place in which the guest has called, possibly providing your name, and then offering your assistance. Right? And I know it sounds like a really some silly point to bring up, but what's the tone of your voice as you answer the phone? You've got to hear the smile, upbeat. I think it's really easy to answer the phone by saying, "Good afternoon, thank you for calling Harrison, good job, this is Stu." Right. Internal timing standards for, let's just say, a guest calls and leaves a message of when you call them back. I think immediately would probably be the best answer, but I'd probably put, a 4-hour maximum on that, at least until the end of the day. When we start talking about something like smiling at eye contact, from our point of view, we don't expect anyone to walk around, a building with some creepy Cheshire Cat grin on your face, looking like you're posing for the glamour shot at the mall. It's not what it is that we mean, and certainly eye contact doesn't mean that you stare at the resident the whole time you're speaking to them. That's really creepy and weird, don't do that. But I would also like to point out, these are two very black and white standards. You either look approachable and friendly, or you're not. Or verbiage and our word choice. So first, what does it mean to be polite? So what does it mean to be well-mannered? We use words like please and may I and thank you. We don't interrupt someone. We don't cut them off. Right? What does it mean to be confident? Know what you're talking about, like your posture. If there aren't a lot of ums and ers and ahs and uhs, how do you get rid of your ums? Just take a very short 1-second mental pause to think about what you want to say before you say it. And then the best one is, what does it mean to be articulate? And this is where, if there's a 4-star standard and a 5-star standard, it sits in that second word. What does it mean to be articulate? Use your words. Be direct, to the point, like that. Knowledgeable about what you're saying. I think first and foremost, use a full and complete sentence. And then through the world of hospitality, there are lots of words that we should say and lots of words that we shouldn't. So something I would actually really encourage you to do is come up with a language culture for your own company. Like words we say and words we don't. It's posted in the back of the house, our verbiage, our language. But you have to also realize that it's part of your uniform. So be really mindful that we speak in a full and complete sentence, and once again, there should be words or phrases that we say and what we don't. How do you show a genuine interest in someone? How do you engage them? What do people care about?
Showed interest in it.
Your response to their reply. You ask the question, someone hears it, and it registers, and you prove that you listened. That's the genuine part, right? It's just like if you fly back home and you see your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, and you say, "Oh, I'm super," or they ask, like, how was your trip to Vegas? And you say, "Oh, it's super great, learned so much, it was great," and then someone looks at you and says, "So what do you want to eat for dinner?" Are you bowled over by the fact that they asked you how your trip was? Or, that's weird, you just changed the topic. Thanks, right? The genuine part is not the question. It sort of tease it up, but the genuine part is, once again, what you learned about somebody. And even within this, I'll divide this up into two things, but it's almost like you have questions and statements. You could ask questions to learn something about somebody, or you could take all those same questions and just put them into acknowledgments. Either one works, right? I could ask you, how was your trip to Las Vegas? Right? Or I could say, I hope you had a great trip to Las Vegas this week. Either one works. I proved that I learned something about you, right? But isn't it funny as you're going through a conversation with someone that they just drop like little clues about themselves? Right? It takes a really active listener to be able to pick up those little golden nuggets and do something with it. How to have a conversation with someone. And be the ability to engage and be able to listen and to respond appropriately. But I like to think of a great conversation like it's a game of catch between two people. You throw the ball back and forth, right? So if we're going to have a conversation, I'll ask you a question, you answer it, you give me your opinion, I give your opinion, and it goes back and forth, right? A bellman delivers the luggage and says, oh, is this your first time staying with us? It is. Excellent. Where would you like me to place your luggage? I don't know. There, right? You call for the spa and you say, I'd like to reserve a facial, and someone says, well, what kind of facial would you like? I don't know, a good one? What do you mean by that, right? What if the spa answered that question by saying, well, we offer a couple of different types. Are you looking for something detoxifying, looking for hydrating, anti-aging? What is it that you want? Then everybody is on the same page. Even something so simple, if I'm back at the bartender and someone orders a gin and tonic, and I say, did you have a preference in gin? What's wrong with that question? What's the question that's coming right back at me? Well, what do you have? Right? Why wouldn't I just answer my question or provide the answers to my question before I asked it, right? So if you ask a potential resident, what is it that you're looking for? What's wrong with that question? No one understands how to answer it. A really important one is using a guest's name, a resident's name. A couple things just about efficiency. Once again, about just being able to get back in time and being able to follow up from, if a guest puts an engineering request in, how long should it take in order for that item to at least not even just be fixed, but at least followed up upon? Is there an internal standard? From just a sense of urgency of the tone of our voice sometimes as we take calls, does it seem like we don't have a sense of urgency even as we're accepting it, or trying to make it obviously a priority for our resident? But if you don't know the basics of your job, you can't perform any of the previous ones. If the front desk agent can't process a key, it doesn't matter that they use your name if they can't get you into the room. So from all of that, so those are all the basics of hospitality. Now I thought that I would just take you through a little tour of what it's like to be a guest. And in some ways, actually, what it's like to be a resident. Because I think that you could take the exact same 5 points and put them into a resident's journey as well. You are the only student housing that has asked us to participate and asked us to partner. And really the only residential component that we actually work with is are any residents that are attached already to hotels. So you're really forging a brand new ground. And it actually is really, really cool that you have the investment that's backing you and the idea and all of that really good stuff. So it makes me, on behalf of Forbes Travel Guide, super proud to be here and to obviously work with you. And certainly if you have any questions, please don't hand that on. Or please don't hesitate to hand that on. One more thing, if I can actually get Elliot to come up here and say thank you so much. But I would also like to make sure that you have a 5-star pin of your own.
Oh, wow. I just want to thank Jeff and George and Peter Cressetti and everyone from Forbes Travel Guide for accepting this experience. We're really excited for what's to come. As I said yesterday, this is epic. Nobody else is doing this in student housing. Really in multifamily as well. So we're the first, we're the innovators, we're going to change the industry, we're going to create the edge over our competition. That's going to give us the 18 leases, the $3 million, and the $50 million I mentioned yesterday.